Hey guys, what is going on? This is Travis P11. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. And today we're going to take a look at an oldie but a goodie. So what we have here is a brand new, unopened Surefire M720V weapon light. Now, it's not every day that I go by, I guess you could say, vintage gear like this. But I've got a little project that I'm working on and it called for this specific part. When I say vintage, this flashlight was actually introduced back in 2010 when it became one of the flashlights being used, or weapon lights being used by US SOCOM with our armed forces. The features on it might seem a little bit underwhelming by today's standards, but for the time when it came out, 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, back in 2010, can't even do the math anymore, it was pretty advanced for its time, and it's got a few features on it that give it some advantages over even some current production flashlights that are out there. So let's go ahead and do a little unboxing. I'm not going to mention the price because YouTube gets a little bit funny when you mention prices and who you bought stuff from and so on. But I will say this, I paid considerably less than MSRP, and we will see what we have. Okay, so we open up the box. Let's check out the manuals here real quick. Okay, so you got a little Surefire catalog, and again, this may be old if this goes back in the day. If any of you are into vintage illumination, this might be something for you. I believe it runs on the, I believe it's CR123s, I'm not 100% sure. Let's run through the specs of this real quick before we get it out of the box, just to tell you a little bit about it. Alright, so the Surefire M720V Raid Series weapons light, it produces 150 lumens of white light for 1.8 hours, but the big feature of it is a 240, I believe, milliwatt infrared output lamp, which will run for up to 8 hours. Virtually indestructible white and IR LEDs regulated to maximize light output and runtime. For switches, it's got several different settings on it, but it does have a momentary and constant on button for it, as well as the tape switch that you can put on it that does the same thing, momentary and constant on. It does have high, medium, and low beams, and I believe it has high, medium, and low for the IR output too. And the construction is high-strength aerospace aluminum with mil-spec anodizing, coated and tempered with the glass. It also has an integral swing lever clamp for Picatinny rails. Now, what also makes it unique is you don't have to have any special filters to run the IR beam on it, and maybe that's standard nowadays, I really don't know, maybe that's just across the board, but for the time when it came out, all you simply have to do is just turn the front of the beam, or turn the front of the lens, and that's going to activate the IR mode, and then you can switch through your different brightness settings. It also has a little manual lockout that we'll take a look at too, which is going to prevent it from basically being used inadvertently. Okay, so the seller did claim that it was new. Yeah, it looks like it has not been mounted yet. It's got all the proper markings on it. One way you can tell if you have a fake, because I looked up some of these online to see what was out there. You can tell if you have a fake because when you put it in IR mode, it starts strobing. So if this thing strobes, then we know that we don't have a real light. Okay, we'll take a look at it. Doesn't appear that any of the buttons have been pushed. All the paint's on there. There's no scratches or scrapes. There's no fingerprints on it. Here's your tape switch for it, which we'll be mounting on our pick rail of the firearm that it's going to go onto. So you've got your medium, high. It also has a flashlight mode to it too, which when you detach it, you can put it into flashlight mode. And then to disable it, you can simply lift and turn, and it'll go into white light mode or IR mode. But you can also leave it at disable, which doesn't allow it to turn on. So it looks like it's going to run on a couple CR123s. You've got a little pin that you have to pull here in order to get it to come out. Just kind of show you the overall design. It's got definitely has some weight to it. You can definitely tell it has the anodized finish to it. So it is an older design. I think it's kind of cool. Like I said, these are currently out of production right now, so if you can find one new, they're getting pretty rare, so if you need one for any kind of a build, just kind of keep your eyes open on that. Alright, so let's just check out some of the basic features. What do you need to know? A little bit about the design. You can change the mounting of it. You can move it forward or back using the two screws that are included with it. It does take two CR123 batteries. The two that came with it were not active, they were dead, so I put two fresh batteries in it and we're good to go. So down here you've got this little selector that will go from disable. You move the arrow back, it won't allow the light to turn on at all, so even if something hits it, it won't turn on. To switch over to white light, you just move the selector switch over here, which locks into place. And then essentially you're going to be using the left-hand side with flashlight mode, strobe mode, medium or high beams, although there's some interesting modes it basically forces you into. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. On this side, you've got your infrared control. So if you want to switch over to infrared, you move the little lock lever over here to IR, it locks into place. and now you're in IR mode. So you've got low, medium, and high beam throws for infrared. All right, so if you want to just use the button on the bottom, you can have just the momentary on and off. And if you double click it, it stays on. What's interesting about this is it basically forces you into medium light mode only. When you're using this push button, it says for navigation purposes only, which I thought was kind of odd, but that's just how it's set up. Now with the button on here that you have on the back, the little tape switch, if you press that, it forces it onto high. It's momentary on if you hold the button and let go. And there's a little bump here so that you can tell that you're using the momentary on-off. And then if you press the front button, it locks into place. So you're getting the high beam by using the tape switch, but either I'm assuming it's the medium setting because there is no low setting on it here. You're going to be getting the medium setting by pressing the button on the bottom. So again, a really cool design, a little bit of a retro style there, which I really do like. And we're going to get this mounted. So what we'll do is we're going to just test this in the dark. We're going to see how well it lights up everything. We'll wait for it to get dark outside, and then we'll just kind of light up the apartment a little bit. Again, it's not going to be mounted on any firearms, so you don't have to worry about that. But it does have a nice sturdy mount system to it. Definitely looks a little bit reminiscent of some of the older EOTech styles that you see, like on the 553. So about this, you do have a lifetime warranty, which is definitely a bonus. And so if I have any problems with it, I don't know if they can replace it just because of the fact that it's been out of production for a while now and they're getting a little bit hard to find, but I think they're pretty cool. Let's just turn on the IR and see if we can even notice the beam at all. So we're going to switch over to IR. Okay, we're going to switch it up to high and we'll go ahead and press the button here. There's just a little tiny red glow coming out of there. You probably can't even, there it is. You can kind of see that red tint and I can let go of it. See, I'll turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. That's the infrared beam that it's actually throwing. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any night vision gear, so we really can't test it, but it's supposed to be a really, really good beam, something that lights things up really well, according to the reviews that I read for people that actually use it with their night vision equipment. So we'll just leave that over on high for now. And then again, you change the lock lever back over to white light, locks into place, and you're all set to go. All right, so let's let it get dark and we'll see what it looks like. Again, with 150 lumens, I'm not of max output. I'm not expecting it to light up the entire apartment, but that's decent. And really, this was more of a CQB, kind of a close quarters, short to mid-range engagement type of light. This isn't made for, throwing a beam out, say a quarter mile or a half mile, right? Okay, so let's let it get dark and we will check out the M720V. Okay, so here's one last little cool test. So I've got a security camera in my house. And there's a little red LED right there. Okay, so that is the infrared light that's coming off the security camera. As you can see, we're in the living room. It's pitch black. There's my security camera showing me the night vision from the camera. Let me go ahead and turn on the infrared beam on the flashlight. And you'll be able to actually see how my camera picks up the infrared beam. Okay, so I've got the beam on. You can see the red glow from infrared. Okay, now watch what happens when I shine it over here. Check that out. You can actually see the beam going across the ceiling and across the back wall. So it's actually illuminating with infrared light. Now if I could somehow block the IR camera from my security camera, you'd be able to see what kind of light this produces, but that's pretty cool. So you can actually see that it does produce a beam that does illuminate. Okay, so we are down in the garage and we're going to turn the lights off here in just a little bit. It's not completely dark outside, but we can at least simulate total darkness in the garage here. And then we'll walk around outside for a little bit once it gets dark. Once you go into flashlight mode, it forces the beam into high regardless of, well, I guess you can't have the switch anywhere else. So what that does is it forces a high beam and then also deactivates your pressure pad so you can take off the light and use it as a flashlight if you want to. Anyway, let's turn the lights off. Let's go ahead and use high and then we'll try medium by pressing the button and we'll see what the difference looks like. Okay, so for starters, let's go ahead and do high. We'll lock into place using the pressure switch. So that's 150 lumens max output. It's adequate. I wouldn't say it's blinding. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of it, but it's actually not bad. It doesn't reflect so much off the walls that it's going to blind me as the user. So I like that. It's actually a little bit softer than what you guys might be seeing in the picture. It's not quite so washed out in the center like it is in the video. Okay, let's go ahead and check out medium here. We're going to use the pressure switch this time, or I'm sorry, we're going to use the button on the bottom of the light. So this is your medium setting, which I'm going to guess is maybe 75, possibly 50 lumens. I'm not really sure. They don't quite give you the gauge like they do for O-lights and things like that. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and switch on the strobe and see what the strobe looks like. I like it because I can flip the switch back all the way, so I know where it is even without having to see it. Okay, let's go into strobe mode. And I think that's probably 150 lumens of strobe. I'll go and turn that off. And then we will go ahead and flick it down into flashlight mode, and it does put on the 150 lumens forced output through the light itself. So that's pretty cool how they have it set up. It's really intuitive and it's easy to figure it out. Okay, so we're gonna walk around outside a little bit here and just kind of, flash on some vegetation, some trees, show you what it looks like outside, but definitely indoors, this is a pretty good light, but it's not so bright that it's gonna blind you, the user, especially as the light's bouncing off the walls. All right, guys, so it's fairly dark out right now, so we're gonna go ahead and just show you the medium setting, which is where you push the button on the bottom of the flashlight. It's not super bright. Again, it feels like maybe 50, 75 lumens, something like that. I mean, it's okay. This tree is only about, probably 7 yards away from you, I suppose. That tree behind it is about 10 yards. Okay, now we'll put the high setting on with the button on the sensor pad here. Much better. So high, which I believe, like I said before, was 150 lumens, more than adequate. Does throw a pretty good beam. Tree off to the left out there is probably about 50 yards away, I'm guessing. So, yeah, it's not too bad. Let's turn the light off here. See the difference? There you go. All right, let's go ahead and bring it back for just a few final comments. One thing I also wanted to address that I didn't bring up when I was talking about the features, water resistance, drop resistance. I can't find any information anywhere on that. It just simply says that it's weather resistant. It does have O-rings and gaskets and seals all the way across, all the way around. So I didn't do any kind of a dunk test on this or submersion test. Unfortunately, so if anybody happens to know like what kind of drop test rating this thing has or IP rating for water resistance, do let me know. Really, because I can't find that information. It's probably because of the fact it's a little bit older design, and a lot of those new ratings just seem to be so popular selling points on flashlights that are out there. So anyway, in terms of actual weather resistance, I'm sure it's going to be fine in 4 seasons, just about down to any temperature that human beings can operate in. So that's what I know about the actual weather resistance itself. All right, guys, and so something I wanted to do, because I didn't get a chance to give you this in much detail before, the switch itself, to show you what it looks like. So unlike, switches that use like an adhesive or anything like that, this just has kind of a rubberized texture to it, and it's got some little sections that will grip in your Picatinny rail when you mount it, and it's just designed to basically just slide on or just simply clip over and lock into place. Now, this switch can be replaced if it would happen to wear out or break, which is pretty cool, but overall, I think it's a great design. Now, here's the thing, guys. This thing it has an MSRP of around $800, and you can find them used for maybe about half that. Like I said, I bought this one brand new. There's lights these days put out so much more light. If you want this for like a clone build like me, or if you want this because you just want a cool piece of SOCOM technology, or maybe you're kind of a bit of a history buff, you've got a lot of options out there, but these are getting really hard to find. And I believe they were in production from 2010 to 2015 for the government. And like I said, they went out of, I don't know if they necessarily went out of production in 2015, but that's when Surefire stopped filling the orders for the government. So again, you might find them, maybe find them at surplus stores and so on, but just has some really cool design features too, which I really like. And like I said, it was a necessary component for the project that I'm working on. So anyway, I will post the final project once it's completed. You'll see all the different components on it and so on. All right, so if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gunstreamer, UGEtube, and over there on guntube.org. So anyway, this is Travis P11. Make sure you check out my podcast called Caliber Corner, which is Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Central Time. You can find that over on my YouTube channel, Travis P11. Like and subscribe. And guys, I want you to have fun. I want you to be safe. And as you know, we will talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.